Adventure, levity, and the splendor of nature can all be found on camping outings. The peace of the wilderness, though, can occasionally be disturbed by terrifying encounters. In this video, we share 3 terrifying true camping horror stories that will fill you with fear and leave you wondering what really happened. It started off very innocently. Our group had picked a remote camping area tucked away in a thick forest. We felt at ease because of the crisp air, the night sky filled with stars, and the crackling of the bonfire. We laughed and told stories while unaware to the evil force lurking in the shadows. The woods were eerily silent as the night drew on. The first time we heard it was then a barely discernible whisper carried by the little air. We initially discounted it as a figment of our imagination. However, the voices remained and grew clearer and louder. Our spines tingled as they yelled out our names in a voice that had an uncanny urgency. We gathered closer as fear overcame us in an effort to find comfort in our shared terror. With its whispers resonating through the night, the woodland seemed to come alive with an invisible presence. We frantically looked for the source, searching the shadows for any indication of motion, but we couldn't find it. The murmurs persisted in haunting us for hours, intensifying and becoming more frequent. Our efforts to leave the woodland proved useless as the voices seemed to be closing in on us from all sides. We decided as a group, worn out and overwhelmed, to break camp and leave the eerie woods. We gathered our belongings with shaky hands and walked into the pitch blackness, our sole light coming from the faint glow of the moon. The trees twisted and turned, seemingly mocking our efforts to escape. As we ventured further into the forest, the whispers intensified their pursuit of us. The darkness was abruptly pierced by a piercing scream. The roar stopped us in our tracks and pierced our eardrums as it echoed through the trees. It was a scream of utter agony and despair that chilled our spines. We immediately began to run in the direction of the source, compelled by a combination of fear and a strong need to get away from the forest's enslaving presence. The piercing cries guided us to a tiny area that was illuminated by a ghostly radiance. There we saw something that would always return to haunt our nightmares. In the middle, an individual with their back to us stood. Their sobs created an eerie symphony of sorrow as we drew near. Our voices quivered as we yelled to the figure out of dread and sympathy. The figure slowly turned, displaying a face twisted with sorrow and pain. We horrifiedly realized at that point that we were in the presence of a ghost that was confined to the murmuring woods. The ghost's eyes, filled with a melancholy that words could not describe, peered into our souls. It narrated its tragic tale, their lost love, brief life, and perpetual agony in the haunted woods in a voice tinged with grief. We watched in awe and terror as the ghost's murmurs changed into a melancholy cry that reverberated throughout the night. We experienced an intense wave of sympathy and compassion for the wounded spirit at that very moment. We want to deliver them from their unending suffering, but the forest's hold was impenetrable. We were ordinary mortals confined in a world of the fantastic, powerless to alter their course. We bade the ghost farewell with heavy hearts, pledging to keep in mind their tale and tell it to others. The whispers of the forest faded into the distance as we drew back from the clearing, leaving us with a deep sense of loss and unresolved questions. We continue to ponder the ghost's true identity and the events that led to their endless misery in the woods of whispers. Was their tale one of treachery, a terrible incident, or perhaps something even worse? The truth might evade us forever, leaving us to puzzle over the mystery of the haunted woodland and the spirit that dwells there. Our camping destination was a quiet woodland filled with life, and it was well recognized for its natural beauty. It was a favorite location for many previous outings, and we were at ease in its cozy embrace. But something was different this time. We started to feel uneasy as we put up our tents and collected firewood. There were noticeably no noises of rustling leaves or chirping birds. Our nerves were on edge because of the unsettling stillness in the air. It was as though the woodland was holding its breath in anticipation of a sinister development. As night fell, the campground was enveloped in lengthy shadows. We sat around the roaring fire, trying to joke and talk our way out of our mounting dread. However, all of our efforts were in vain since a chilly wind that was blowing through the woods put out our flickering fires. A horrified shriek broke the stillness in the shadows. One of our companions had vanished in an instant, along with their tent, when we turned around. We frantically combed the area, searching for any trace of our missing colleague, when panic overcame us. However, the jungle had engulfed them completely, leaving no sign of their previous existence. We were gripped with fear and confusion. How could someone disappear so eerily? Our remaining group members drew close together as our collective commitment was severely tested. We were unsure of what to do next and torn between staying to seek out the truth and running away from the evil presence that lurked in the darkness. We took the terrifying decision to leave our camping as daylight broke and return to civilization. We left with troubled hearts, haunted by the mystery surrounding the disappearance and the unsettling knowledge that even familiar locations can turn out to be traps. The encounter at the Vanishing Campsite became a recurring nightmare as the months went by. In an effort to forget the terrifying experience, we looked for comfort in our daily activities. But the queries persisted, nibbling at the margins of our awareness. We started looking for solutions nonstop, eager to solve the puzzle of what had happened that fatal night. We looked through local records, conducted in-depth interviews with residents, and even called in paranormal sleuths. The reality, however, escaped us like a spectral apparition that vanished into thin air. The nearby small town was filled with rumors about a cursed forest that would eat anyone who ventured to visit there. Some claimed it was caused by vengeful ghosts, while others attributed it to old rites carried out in the woods. The more we dug into the folklore of the area, the more we came to the conclusion that we might never find the answers we were looking for. Our group gradually dispersed as time went on, each of us troubled by our own demons and the unresolved issues on our minds. Those who still ventured to enter the neighboring forests began whispering in hushed tones about the campground that vanished. The mystery surrounding the disappearing encampment persists to this day, leaving a gap in our communal memory. Was it the act of a sinister entity preying on unwary campers? Or did we happen upon a gateway leading to a different dimension, where the rules of our reality weren't in effect? The opportunities are as limitless as the pitch blackness that night that enveloped our tent. We are left wondering what actually transpired in the depths of that cursed woodland as we leave the disappearing campground behind, indelibly imprinted in our memories. We discovered an abandoned cabin with a sinister vibe in the middle of the wilderness. We made the decision to spend the night inside out of curiosity and caution. As the environment fell into darkness, weird occurrences like an unsettling presence, objects moving by themselves, and an increasing sense of being watched started to occur. We were terrorized all through the night by whispers that came from the shadows and an unknown presence that was hiding. We made vain attempts to flee from its grasp, leaving us to wonder about the true nature of the evil entity that had surrounded our camp. The cottage was a lone sentry in the middle of the forest, and its run-down condition hinted at a turbulent and troubling past. We were intrigued by it despite its sinister aspect, and against our better judgment, we took shelter behind its crumbling walls. An gloomy atmosphere came upon us as night fell. We had a great sense of dread as the strange stillness in the air got thicker and heavier. Our eyes were tricked by the dancing and flickering of the shadows. It was at this point that we first sensed the presence of tangible evil that appeared to permeate the cabin's very walls. Things started to move on their own, slamming into the walls and sliding across the floor. A chorus of mysterious voices seemed to be trying to make us insane as ominous murmurs resonated through the dim recesses. We clutched to one another in order to shelter ourselves from the unfathomable evil that was all around us as fear overcame us. Escape attempts from the cabin were unsuccessful. The windows and doors were still locked, encircling us in a terrifying web. We made an effort to communicate with whatever that lived inside. The only response to our cries for mercy was scornful laughter and an increasing sense of hopelessness. The creature continued to torture us for hours on end while playing mind games with us. We huddled close to each other, nervously watching the night go by as we waited for the first light of day to save us from the shadows. But it was never there. We discovered ourselves imprisoned in an endless night as dawn drew near, always at the whim of the unseen monster that had taken possession of the cabin.